So here's the first question. So this is basically a trigonometric transformations problem, a common-ish question that pops up in AASL. So G is obtained by two transformations of the graph F. So this is G and this is F. As you can see, they have some parallels. Both of them have a factor of 4 in front of the sign. Both of them have a 2.5. Okay. The question is, what was done to F to make G? That's the question. Okay. So what did we do to F to make G? Well, first thing I see is that we take F and we subtract 3 pi over 2 from its x, right? So instead of x, we have x minus 3 pi over 2 in G. So we've
Mhm.
basically replaced the x with x minus 3 pi over 2. And we've added, on top of 2.5, we've added a q at the end of it, of F, right? Because
Yeah.
everything else is the same. So this is what G is. This is what G of x is. The question though is, what are the transformations? So do you know what this guy does?
Right.
Subtracting 3 pi over 2 from x, what does that do to the graph?
Um, does it move it to the left?
Moves it to the right because
Right.
in horizontal transformations, it's opposites. So so basically f of x is translated to the right by 3 pi over 2 units, and that's one thing. And the other thing is the plus q. So what does the q do?
I forgot.
So when you add something to the entire function, not just the x part, but the whole function, you're changing it vertically because you're adding something to the y value. So it gets translated up by q units. So it moves up by q units. Okay.
Okay.
So to the right by 3 pi over 2 and up by q. Now, it says that the y-intercept of G is 0, r. Okay. Y-intercept of G is 0, r. And given that g of x is always more than or equal to 7, can you find out the smallest value of r? Okay, so there's two pieces of very interesting information given to us. The first thing is that when x is 0, g of 0 is r. That's actually redundant. I shouldn't say when x is 0. By saying g of 0, I am automatically saying x is 0. So that's the first thing that's told to us, right? Because it says that the y-intercept is 0, r, which means that when x is 0, y is r.
Yeah.
And the other interesting thing is that g of x is always more than or equal to 7, which means the minimum value of g of x is 7, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's think about the graph of a g of x, okay? This is going to be a bit tough to understand, but think about it like this. So what does sine of x look like normally? Sine of x looks like this. I'm just going to draw one period of it, right? The minimum is -1, the maximum is 1. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first make f of x because kind of f of x kind of goes on to make g afterwards. So I'm gonna make f of x first. To make f of x, all I gotta do is multiply my y values by 4, okay, which means that my new peak is at 4 and my new peak is at -4, right? And then I need to move the graph up by 2.5 units. So what happens is that my graph basically becomes something like this. So it's not at the x-axis anymore, because the center of the graph is at 2.5 because it's moved up by 2.5, and the peak of the graph is now at 4 plus 2.5, which is 6.5, and the bottom of my graph is now at um 2.5 minus 4, which is actually going to be under the x-axis. Are you following, by the way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, something like this. So the peak is 6.5 and the bottom is, I guess, minus 1.5, I believe, because 2.5 minus 4, right? Because the amplitude
Oh
is
yeah.
4. Now that's what f of x looks like. Now the question is, what does g of x look like then? Okay, let's do more um, surgeries to f of x now. So what we gotta do now is we need to move f of x to the right by 3 pi over 2, which is not really gonna change the vertical nature of it, but still, it's just gonna move the graph to the right like this. The peak and everything stays the same. But then we have to move the graph up by q units. So the question is, where is now the peak gonna be? That's the question. See, originally it was at minus 1.5, so the bottom will now be at minus 1.5 plus q, and the peak will now be at 6.5 plus q, and the center will now be at 2.5 plus q, because we've added q to it. We've moved the graph up by a further q units. Is this clear?
Yeah.
So this is what g of x looks like now. And as you can see, they've told you that the minimum of g of x is 7, which means that we can now claim that minus 1.5 plus q must be equal to 7, because the bottom of the graph has to be 7, because it says it's always more than or equal to the bottom, right?
Mm.
So q is therefore 7 plus 1.5, which is 9.5.
Wait, I'm confused.
No? Okay. So did you understand this stuff so far?
I understand the graph, but I was just like,
Why is
I
this
was
minus
following up
1.5 plus
until
q?
because Q moves it up. So, but we
Yeah,
don't know the value of Q.
exactly. So
But
since
why
I
do we
know that,
equate it to
uh-huh.
7?
Because look, they told us that the g of x is always more than or equal to 7, which is essentially them saying that the minimum of g of x is 7, right?
Yeah.
So if the minimum of g of x is known to be 7, and the minimum is supposed to be minus 1.5 plus q, then 7 must be 1 minus 1.5 plus q.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
smart, right?
Yeah.
So q would therefore be 9.5. So we found q. Nice. So far, so good?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, what else do we know here? We know that the y-intercept is r, and we need to find out what r is, right? In fact, we need to find out the smallest value of r. Okay, so we need to plug in 0 for x and basically find out what the output is. Because it says that g of 0 is r, right? And the thing is, we already know everything about g of x now. So let's write it down. So we know that g of x is 4 sine of x minus 3 pi over 2 plus 2.5 plus 9.5, which will be 12, I think. Yeah, 12. And there's asked, they basically told us that r is what happens when g is, sorry, when x is 0. So let's plug in 0 for x. Make sense so far?
Yep.
And that's basically it. You just need to kind of put this in the calculator and get the answer. So that's it. This is a calculator question.
It's
Okay?
a calculator question.
It has to be, because otherwise you can't really calculate this.
Mm. I thought it was from paper one.
Really? Can you check?
Yeah.
Because if it is, then that changes things. Okay, you're supposed to know these, right? Like the sign of, like, I think it's 0, pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, and pi. There's a bunch of them that you're supposed to memorize, right?
Yeah, with cos and tan.
Mm-hmm.
I'll check
So
it
you're,
later. But
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So you're gonna basically check what the value of this guy is according to that, and just, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
So this question obviously is like jumping into the deep end of the pool, because this is a fairly difficult question of trigonometric transformations. So if you understand this, that means you're good with trigonometric transformations. You don't need to worry about them.
Yay.
Okay. Okay. So let's move on to the next question now. I'm gonna, yeah, I'm gonna make separate recordings for each question. I think that's probably better.